All right, guys. So today we're going to talk about a product that I honestly could have swore that I was reading the name wrong, or that there was like a typo on the packaging. And that is from the company Geek Wold. I honestly thought they just dropped the R and it should have been Geek World, but no, it is Geek Wold. There's a lot of times where I say it's such a good thing for there to be so much competition in the market, because it kind of helps competitors and different companies start to be competitive. Like, they have to bring the prices down on things to be competitive in a market where there's excellent other alternatives out there offering the same thing, if not better, at a lower cost. But the downside to this, and today's product that we're going to talk about, which is the Geek Wold GK20 Pro, it also causes where a great product can also get buried in the mixture of all the other different products that are out there. And I kind of feel like the GK20 Pros are going to fall into that category because they have a lot going for them, and they only come in retailing at about 100 to 110 bucks. Like right now on AliExpress, which I'll have this linked in the description, these are only $108 right now. But this is an IEM that is using 3 balanced armature drivers, 2 piezoelectric drivers, 1 8mm planar driver, and then also 1 8mm dynamic driver. So that's a lot of drivers in a pair that's $100. And again, there's other things about these that I feel like make them very interesting. So we're going to talk about all of that, but let's go ahead and talk about the packaging first. It comes in this like really impressive, like nice pleather looking box. Now, when you open it up, it also comes with a nice pleather carrying case. Kind of looks like a thick envelope. It gives you plenty of space to hold the IEM and then the cable. Now, the cable is also a nice, like, pretty thick, like braided cable. It's not one of those like cheap, thin wired cables that come with a lot of IEMs. They did a really good job here. Now, it is also using that 2-pin connection, which I feel like is the most common when it comes to IEMs. But the plug-in part is actually a 4.4mm balance plug-in. Now, this isn't as common as like the normal 3.5mm plug-in. I do find that I use balance plug-ins more than anything else because it's what's on the amp that I have at my desktop. It's also on a lot of the dongles that I test, different DACs and things like that. So I actually kind of appreciate that they went with this, but I am surprised that there's not an adapter for like normal 3.5mm plug-in, or even the 1/4-inch plug-in that a lot of other amps use as well. Now, other things inside the box is you are getting a nice little selection of silicone ear tips. It comes with like 3 different styles. Now make sure, and I've said this in all my other videos, whenever a company is sending you a bunch of different style of ear tips, always try each one, because they all kind of deliver a different sound signature. There's some that's better for low end. There's some that's better, like it's tightening things up a little bit better. So it's, going to bring out your mids and treble and do a better job with that than what, some that are trying to bring out the low end. So again, make sure that you're always testing out all the different ear tips. Now, the IEMs themselves, I was really impressed with how they look. It's actually pretty subtle looking for how many drivers are in here, because in my experience, whenever I'm testing IEMs that have a bunch of drivers, they usually start to get pretty thick and chunky. It starts to look like that bolt that sticks out of Frankenstein's neck. But somehow they were able to keep these pretty low profile. But speaking of low profile, one thing that I wish that they would have done with these was not slap the Geek Wold branding on the outside, because honestly, if you take that off, this is a really clean looking pair of IEMs. It just kind of has like this galaxy look to it, has little speckles of, I don't know if it's like a gold or maybe even glitter to kind of, again, make it look like the stars in the galaxy. And Geek Wold just kind of takes over a lot of the real estate, and I think kind of takes away from the look of these a little bit. Not much, but that's just kind of like a minor gripe that I have with the actual design, because outside of that, it's very subtle. Now, as far as how comfortable they are, I didn't have any issue keeping them in my ears. I also didn't feel like they were sticking out, so it's not one of those. Again, if it's one of those thicker ones, sometimes the weight on the outside of those kind of feel like they're pulling, or feel like they're falling out of your ear, and I did not experience that with these. So now let's just go ahead and jump right into the sound of these. Now, this is what makes these very interesting, because all of these different drivers are doing all of these different things, and they're all doing them pretty well to kind of mash up into this really I feel like fairly tight sounding IEM. It's not one of those where I feel like the bass is sloppy. It's not overly aggressive. I feel at times it does have a really nice punch to it, but you can tell that they're trying to keep these pretty well controlled, no matter what genre you're listening to, or if you're watching a movie or using them for gaming, which I am going to say this. I feel like this pair for gaming, it's fantastic. And this obviously could be because the mids and the treble is pretty pumped up and it's very detailed. So when it comes to dialogue and when it comes to like hearing footsteps and things, being able to tell where all this stuff is coming from, this is what this really excels at, because I do feel like the sound stage and the sound imaging, I did not expect them to be as wide as they were. And I didn't expect to be able to kind of hear the distance of where everything was coming from. So again, that kind of lends itself very well for, gaming and movies. But when it comes to music, now this is a whole different thing. If you are a bass head, I will tell you right now, you're probably going to feel like these are lacking a little bit. Because if I sit here and compare them to a pair like the Eco OH1s, the OH10s, these are very light on bass compared to those. Now, it's not a light pair when it comes to bass in general, because it's definitely able to make you feel the impact. It's just not sloppy. It's not trying to pick up sub bass where it's, giving you that like rumble or anything like that. It's actually pretty accurate overall. And the mids and the treble, even though they're bumped up quite a bit, they still have a slight amount of warmth to them. And I think that's what makes these feel pretty natural overall. And it wasn't necessarily something that I was expecting in this $100 price range. I definitely think this pair sounds like a much more expensive pair of IEMs. So again, I think the value is definitely there. But again, what really is going to be the problem is the market that they're in, because chi-fi IEMs are just all over the place. And there's so many different companies. And then this could be a very well-known company. I've never heard of them, but it's not surprising because there are so many different companies out there. It's kind of hard to keep up with it. But I do know that I was very impressed with the sound. I think there's a lot of value to these, even outside of listening to music. This is an excellent pair for gaming. And I don't always feel like, there's a pair that's good at a bunch of different things. But I do find this to be a pair that I could actually use for all of those different things, and have no hesitation recommending them for anybody looking for an inexpensive pair of IEMs to do all of that. But guys, that wraps up my video on the Geek Wold GK20 Pros. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.